Hi folks, Slick Slices here. I've got a very interesting knife here for you today. It's come from the Custom Knife Factory, who are a Moscow-based manufacturer of sort of semi-custom knives. They certainly make the difficult and the unusual, although the difficult to make and unusual. This particular one is designed by Peter Vicenti. Now, though it's a custom knife factory here in Moscow, Peter is actually a Canadian knife designer who is particularly known for making integral knives, and this here is in fact an integral knife. Now, integral knives pose a number of problems. I mean, one, in a way, they're wasteful of material because you have to machine out of a solid billet, which is effectively 3 times the size of the billet that you would need, or 1.5 times the size of the billet that you would need to make 2 scales, because you've got to mill out all that middle bit. But there are other problems that it presents you with. One of which is where to put your stop pin. The usual solution, or that many knife manufacturers come up with, is that they end up having a removable section from the knife around the pivot point, which obviously provides a piece of weakness, but also just a lack of cohesion to the whole thing. The other thing is that you have a problem with your steel interface here, where you need an insert to stop the titanium rubbing against the steel and wearing very rapidly. So you have to put that in from the outside. Then you have a problem that you have to be careful. It's much more difficult to set the tension of the lock bar, so you need to have an over travel stop, and you need to put that in again from the outside. So that's how that's done. It also gives you a problem in that milling the relief for the lock bar is very difficult on the inside, and it also makes it slightly difficult to mount your pocket clip without visible screws. Now, a lot of people, when manufacturing knives with 2 scales, still have the screws showing on the outside, still put the relief on the outside, and even sometimes put the over travel and lock plate on the outside. And in fact, some also do what he's done with his stop pins. Medford, for example, quite often has knives where the stop pins are visible on the outside of the knife. They do have a couple of ways that they get round that. The en belay has them tucked into pockets, but the stop pin still travels around the outside. Here he has made stop pins that look like thumb studs but really aren't, but they act as a stop pin because they hit on this part of the handle on both sides, and that means that he doesn't need to have a removable part around the pivot, which is good innovative design. Whilst we're still on the handle, I suppose we ought to have a look at a number of features of it. Now, first one is, this is quite an expensive knife. I mean, I think if you wanted to buy one, they're about $900 if you can find one. That's on the secondary market. I don't know what they were like when they were primary. It has a stonewash finish, which is almost resonant of Serge Panchenko or something like that. It's a practical finish, and it probably works quite well, covers marks, doesn't suffer snail trails as much as other materials, but I just think it looks a bit rough, really, for a knife at this level. What, on the other hand, he's done, which raises it way above the ordinary, is the way that he's done this machining. I mean, first of all, you obviously got machining around the edges. You've got some chamfering. You've got some just good all-round quality engineering. A little bit of design here, which also gives you the practicality of for the stop pin. But I think in the middle, having this sort of faux bolster arrangement, which actually is the knife getting a little bit thinner from the main part of the handle. It thins down towards the pivot, which of course that also means that because this angle, this flat here and the flat on the opposite side are tapering towards each other, it adds an extra slight level of complication around the engineering to make sure that the pivot works properly. But he's done all that, pulled that all off very nicely. So let's have a little look at the blade. I suppose we'd start by saying it's a M390, which is a steel I really like. I know it's become a bit commonplace, but if done right, M390 is a really good steel. It's not too hard to sharpen. It can hold an edge well and can be hardened to around 60 to 62 Rockwell without becoming overly brittle or fragile. But now let's get into this blade. If you're a fan of machining, you'll love this. This is like it's like a Andre de Villiers on steroids. There's just so many different angles to it. First of all, you've got a big sharpening choil. It is just a sharpening choil, but it works really well. You've got then a recurve portion to the blade here, and I mean, I assume we're probably going to call this a tanto, round tomitted. It's probably a tanto, but it's given us another different direction. So we've got a sort of plunge line here, your Coty line, I suppose you could call it, which takes the difference between this lovely hollow ground here and this. I think it's actually convex, or certainly flat. It's not hollow ground, this part of the blade. Then you've got a sort of stonewash or heavy bead blasted finish on the main bevels of the blade. On this area here above the, I suppose you could call it a saber grind, there is a horizontal satin. You've then got this fuller that's in there, which appears to be bead blasted, and then we have a lovely big swedge at the back, which again is a different finish, which I think is another sort of bead blasted finish, but a different one. The fuller's quite dark grey. This is quite light. Then, of course, we've also got this area here where the jimping is, which gives us quite a good thumb ramp and almost a harpoon shape to the blade. So overall, I mean, there's just a lot going on here in a knife that's relatively small. Just do some size comparisons just to let you see what size it is, and I will use the usual comparators that seem to be jumping out mostly recently. So that's a small Sabenza. Oops, just move that all up a wee bit. The small Sabenza, and you'll see it's a little bit bigger than the small Sabenza, but not a huge amount. And then compared to the large Sabenza, it's a little bit smaller than the large Sabenza. Doesn't look like it in that picture, but it is. Partly that's because the camera's at a little bit of an angle, but it's definitely smaller than the large Sabenza. I don't know if I can make that clearer. Yeah, so that's the points are together. You can see that it's much shorter in the handle. Anyway, this is one of those knives that comes in, and I think to myself, I'm really glad I saw this. It's a really nice piece. As I say, the grinding and engineering is great. It is an integral design. Or there's a lanyard. 2 holes for a lanyard there, which are completely hidden if you don't want to use them, but perfectly practical if you do, and a machined clip. But like I say, this is one of those knives I'm really glad came in. I really liked seeing it, but I'm not sure it would be one that would be on my shopping list. I'm very grateful to have it lent to me in order to share it with you, because I think it's an interesting knife. It's a good quality knife, it's well made, and if a knife can be good value for money, then this could be seen as you're getting what you're paying for in terms of the amount of work that's gone in. It's worth it. Would cost you 2 Sabenzas to buy it, but there is certainly twice as much machining in this knife as there is in a Sabenza, even if the materials are probably pretty much of a muchness. You'd now be getting Magna Cut if it was a Sabenza and titanium, but you'd be getting less of both, and you'd have less machining within them as well. Plus, this has got a roller bearing system, which I completely ignored, and a very heavy detent, so much so that I cannot flick this. But I got my wife to flick it just to check it's flippable, and she had no problem with it. But I find the detent is just a bit heavy for me. But that's purely a function of my dodgy hands. Anyway, if you like this stuff, please give it a thumbs up. If you want to see some more of it, and God forbid some of you might, then subscribe, and remember to ring the notifications bell if you want to see more of the videos. Thank you very much. I'll see you all again soon. Bye.